everyone. We have Dr. John Cowles here with us. He's interviewing for the Vice Chancellor Student Success, and he's going to spend the next 10 to 15 minutes talking to you about what his vision for the Student Success team would look like here at Ivy Tech. And I also want to remind everyone to make sure that you use the link and provide your feedback after the session. And here's Dr. Cowles.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Thank you all for being here in person and virtually. I appreciate that. I'm going to talk about my vision of student success for Ivy Tech, but really I think it's our shared vision of student success at Ivy Tech. Most of you have a handout. Sorry for the folks who aren't here who don't have the handout. But the handout really kind of outlines what I think student success probably does look like at Ivy Tech and could look like with some enhancements. So some of these terms are going to be real familiar to you: student-centered, outcome-driven. Those terms are really from your strategic plan, right? You've seen those before, I would imagine, or at least I hope you have seen those before. So I want to talk about student-centered. And student-centered really is we meet our students where they are. We don't have expectations about them. We know that they want to be successful, and we're here to make sure that we help them be successful. I think by having required academic and career planning, we can really set that foundation for those students. And you're doing some of that work right now, so that's not new. Connections to campus and community resources are very important. We can't give our students everything that they need, but we can find those resources for them in the community or on campus to help them be successful. I'm a strong believer that student success coaches, or mentors, if you will, are really important to the success of our students. I currently serve as the Dean of Student Success and Retention at Grand Rapids Community College in Grand Rapids, Michigan. We, with the Title III grant, were able to create our College Success Center. And I know that's a term that you all are familiar with. But we were able to fund success coaches that really work with our most at-risk students and are assigned to those at-risk students and are very proactive in making contacts with those students. I think having success coaches, along with a team of academic advisors, career counselors, and other support professionals, we surround those students with the support that they need to be successful. I want to give you an example. So Jim is a first-generation college student. He's applied to Ivy Tech, has received communication that he's accepted. He needs to complete his placement test. I would say a student success coach is assigned to Jim immediately, even before he's taken that placement test, and has some communication with him. He phones him, he uses text messaging. Students don't do emails anymore. I think you probably already know that. But so this coach is very intentional in contacting the student at initially and specifically throughout his life at Ivy Tech. He connects with him about connecting to his assigned advisor, how to track his degree completion, and when to enroll for classes each semester and more. I think outcome-driven is the second graduation cap you have on your handout. Outcome-driven, I reviewed your strategic plan. I think it's ambitious yet attainable, to use the Student Support Services phrase. So in your 2017 IPEDS report, your fall-to-fall full-time retention rate statewide was 49%, and goal 1 is to increase that rate to 50% in year 1, and then by year 5 to 60%. I think that's possible. I hope it's possible. So I think that you're going to have to become very, very specific and targeted at doing that. So I would say a comprehensive retention communications plan is important. Coaches connect with students at key points prior to enrollment, week 3 of the term, midterm, during re-enrollment. Coach can refer again the student to any college or community resource that he or she needs. The advisor communicates with students at key intervals as well after the first meeting, reminders about reviewing degree plan and follow-up. Communications with faculty during the semester regarding using early alerts, so your Starfish system. I think that's critical. Faculty, I said this with the team this morning, but classroom faculty are the key to retention for students. We can work very hard. We can do all the work necessary. We can support that student wherever he or she is. But if that student doesn't feel welcomed or included in the classroom, we're not going to retain that student. And so I think really we have a responsibility to communicate with faculty to make sure that they have the tools necessary and use the tools that we already have in order to help retain students. I would want to create a culture that celebrates completion of certificates and degrees. One of the things that we do at Grand Rapids every year is we do what's called Grad Fest. Grad Fest is every student who is nearing 60 credits is invited to Grad Fest to do their graduation application, look at cap and gown rentals or purchases, just really having a fun event for students to really encourage graduation. So many of our students, and I'm guessing with Ivy Tech students as well, they don't see the associate's degree as something that they're really striving for. Many don't. It's either a certificate, or I want to get out and work, or I want to transfer. But having that become important, creating a culture of graduation is important, is critical, I think. Increasing reverse transfer options for those who transfer prior to graduation is super important. Also, auto-awarding certificates and degrees. You know, why, and maybe you already do this, but we said a couple years ago, we're not going to require the students to actually apply for graduation. We're going to do a grad audit on them and say, okay, you have to opt out of your degree. So we'll send you a letter and saying, if you're going to get an associate's degree, congratulations. If you don't want that, please reply by this date and we won't award it. Sometimes students don't want it because they're getting ready to do another program and they still need financial aid eligibility. So we do want to give them that option. But we really were able to increase our graduation yield on a yearly basis by doing the auto graduation and the reverse transfer programs. So that's kind of outcome-driven examples. Inclusive. Development of retention and completion plans by student group. I talked this morning a little bit about programs that we have on our campus for Latino students and African American males. I did not mention that we have an African American female program now as well. And so that one is kind of in its infancy, but very proud of the work that we've been able to do to reach out to populations of students who need a little push or a little more support than some other students might need. And so we've been able to increase the success rates of our African American students and our Latino students by considerable percentage points. I'm very proud of that work. I'll give you a for instance. So the students in our ABO program, our African American male program, have a success rate of about 70 to 75% at the end of the semester. Our African American males who are not a part of ABO, they're at a dismal 35 to 38%. I'm embarrassed by that statistic, but it is what it is. So I do think that having inclusion programs that reach specific populations is critically important. The other thing that we did at Grand Rapids was, and I think there are other subpopulations of students too. I don't want to just mention those 3 or 4 subpopulations, but there are others. One of the things that we did, particularly with our Latino students, was we created a graduation celebration for our Latino students who were graduating. We give them certificates. They invite their families, and they can invite as many people as they want. It is an amazing night. And students come up on stage, and this is usually the week before graduation. And so they come up, they get their certificate of their award certificate. They get to tell their story if they want. Some are so nervous and they don't want to talk. And others, they will tell their stories. And I'm the one on stage shaking their hand. And I'm just bawling. I'm just crying because their stories are so powerful. It's about the support they receive from their family or their friends. And I think that's really important for our students, is that they need to have a support network. And sometimes that's faculty and staff. So a lot of times it's their families. So creating those graduation celebrations to honor the diversity of our students and celebrating their families. Create a faculty and staff mentoring group for our students as needed. Could be another way to show our inclusion practices. And I also think creating regular and sustained student feedback forums is critically important. Let's listen to our students, not just from SESI or SENSE results or from Noel Levitt satisfaction inventories, but let's hear from them in focus groups, what they want to say. That can be hard to hear sometimes, and you may disagree with what they're saying, but their perception is their perception. And I think that that is what we need to hear, and that's how we can also show inclusion. One more thing I'll add on inclusion is I'm a big believer in having a sense of belongingness on campus. For faculty and staff as well, not just students. But if our students don't feel like they belong or they don't see themselves in our faculty and staff, that can be very detrimental to student success. Collaborative. I think that we have to work hand in hand with academics. You know, we cannot do it just by ourselves. Again, students spend more of their time in a classroom than they do in our advising offices or our career offices. So working with our academic folks, our faculty, is really critical in being collaborative. I would advocate for the creation of a campus-wide retention and completion team that includes faculty, academic and student services administrators, as well as student representatives. I think having that team charged with retention and completion is critical, and that's something that I would like to see. In terms of community, I gave some examples this morning in talking to the team about how we were able at GRCC to go to our community and ask for dollars to support a couple specific student programs. So we were able to obtain $300,000 to support our ABO, our African American Men's Program, as well as our Latino Support Program. We also got $300,000 from a community foundation. And it was a foundation that really was around environmental concerns. So it was really big for them to be able to fund a student service project like this to increase diversity and inclusion. Trustworthy and transparent, I think we have to be honest and share the data. We should not hide behind not being proud of our numbers. If our numbers aren't good, let's talk about them anyway, right? And when our numbers are good, let's talk about them. So I think anytime that you have data on retention, I think you should share that widely and openly with people. Share results of student feedback forums. Solicit retention and completion suggestions from faculty, staff, and follow up on those ideas. Don't just ask for ideas and not follow up on them. I think that all of you have really good ideas and answers. So I think getting that information would be critical to increasing student success. I also am a big believer, and the folks on the video interview heard this, but I'm a big believer in holding open meetings. Once a month in my division for student success and retention, I hold a meeting. It's an all-come meeting. If you don't want to come, don't come. That's okay. It's scheduled for 60 minutes. I provide coffee and juice, and I talk for 5 to 10 minutes, and then everyone else has to talk. So I want to know what's going on with people, both professionally and personally. If they want to share, that's fine. We celebrate new employees at that meeting. We also celebrate employee achievements at that meeting. So I just think that having those open meetings is really critical to keeping everyone on the same page and giving you all a voice to also be a part of that meeting. And I call them PowerPoint-less meetings. I will never have a PowerPoint at one of those meetings, never. And if I invite someone from outside the division to come in and they want to do a PowerPoint, I'm like, I kind of promised everyone no PowerPoints, but you're a guest, you can bring a PowerPoint, that's fine. I did my 360 evaluation this year, and I invite everyone in the division to evaluate me on a form, the electronic form that they get. And it's completely anonymous. And so more employees this year said that they really appreciated those open meetings because it gave them an opportunity to find out what someone else was doing, as well as what the big picture for the institution was. So I was very proud of that. Those are my key points on a shared vision for student success at Ivy Tech Community College. I would be happy to take questions from all of you at this point. Yes, hi.
Hi. My name's Sarah. I'm a lead advisor for student success here, so I work for Robbie.
Hi, Sarah.
So we talked a lot about goal one, about student success. But one of my crusades, for lack of a better word, is goal 5, which is employee retention. So talk to me a little bit about your philosophies on employee retention.
So her question was on my philosophies around employee retention. So I think it's a great question. I am a very collaborative leader. I'm a very much of a leader that I want to grow people. And if growing people means that they end up leaving the institution or leaving the division, that's perfectly fine. I want to make sure that people are happy in the work that they do. I am not a top-down leader. I just don't think that works. So I've had employees come to me and say, well, John, I want to do what you do at some point. And I say, well, okay, let's build a plan to get that done. And this is what do you want to put into the plan? So I do believe in growing people. I believe in promotion from within when we can do that, because I think that's really important as well. And sometimes the best choice for an employee is to find another place to work, and that's okay too. And I don't mean that in a negative way. I think that people need to be happy and fulfilled in the work that they do. So I do like to grow people. I like to grow talent. In my division, I should give you some context for this. So Kent County, where the college that I work at is located, is about 70% Caucasian. And so in the rest of the institution, diversity doesn't look like it does for our county. But within my division, I meet or exceed that county-wide goal in terms of staff. And that means growing people from students into employees. I have an example of a young woman who was a student. She got a job in our advising office, working at our front desk, student employee. She has completed her master's degree in counseling, is employed full-time at our institution. And I'm very proud of that. I'm very proud of growing people from within, even from student status to full-time employee status. Long answer, sorry.
Can I ask a quick follow-up?
Sure.
All right. So how do you work to grow staff when there aren't resources, when there aren't positions for that person to move into? What are some other ways that you help staff develop and grow?
Yeah. So one way is professional development, and I'm kind of a master at finding funding for professional development or bringing professional development to the institution so that a lot of people can benefit from it. I also am a firm believer of if people don't have the degree that they're going to need for that final move, supporting that person in using any employee tuition reimbursement plans that are available or other options for education and training. And the third way really is around encouraging them to get active on teams outside of their area. So we have at GRCC what's called APSS, Administrative Professional Support Staff. So typically, those employees do not get invited to participate on college-wide teams, and I think that's ridiculous. And so if you have passion about something, I'm going to make sure I find a team or a project that you can get involved in that will grow your skill set, even if there are not positions available currently. And we can't predict the future, right? We don't know what's going to be open a year from now. Other questions? Yes?
Hi, my name is Elizabeth Swisher. I'm also part of the Student Success Center team, part of Robbie's team. So I have a question related to what you see as common institutional barriers, and if you could share an example of how you have worked to address an institutional barrier.
So how have I worked to reduce an institutional barrier? One of our, I think a barrier for us used to be for our students who are not necessarily documented, right? So DACA students as well as others. Even graduating from an in-district high school, sometimes these students were charged out-of-district or out-of-state tuition rates, which I thought was very unfair. So that was a barrier the institution put up, and that was a barrier that I helped to take down. We were able to change the residency rules for individuals. So they may pay that for 6 months, but after 6 months, they're able to then get in-district tuition. That's one example. I mentioned earlier that one of the barriers students had faced at GRCC for our transgender students, being able to have their preferred name on the class roster, right? And so that was a barrier that we had until we worked on, and I'll give credit to our legal counsel for this. They were really kind of out there, and I'm glad they were, because usually legal counsels are not out there, they're back here, was that they created a transgender equal opportunity policy, which guaranteed students to be able to have their preferred name used on class rosters as well as other protections. So those are a couple of examples. You're welcome. Yes, sir.
Historically, student affairs at this institution have been defined by the enrollment process. You'll often hear that it's referred to as student support offices, thus the student success name of this. Sitting over here, this small student-like office, we have 24,000 students. What will you do to come in and strengthen student-like programming, and secondly, to integrate that into the activities of the institution?
That's a great question. So the question, if you didn't hear it, was how will I strengthen student life, for lack of a better term, and really increase that and promote that? Well, as I mentioned a few minutes ago about the creation of a program called GradFest, right? And GradFest was really our student congress helped to design that activity, and really using OrgSync and other venues, we're able to promote that. So that's one way. In my current position, I'm not over student life at this point. So we have kind of a bifurcated system as well at Grand Rapids. I'm over the student success areas, all the support programs, and another dean is over admissions, student life, and things like that. So I think student life and student activities are extremely critical to any institution, even a commuter institution. So increasing student programming would be important, as well as supporting students in what they want to do with those programs, right? I said student forums are important. I think that's extremely true in a student life, student activity setting as well. So I want to hear from the students about what they need and what they want, and then work hard to support that and promote that. I think it's important, whether it's at cabinet level or in an open employee forum, to make sure that people know the good stuff that you all are doing. And so having a student life office and programming for 24,000 students is not easy. It's not easy, but it can be done. But I do think that you have to have the resources to do that, and making sure that you know exactly what those students want and need. That's pretty critical.
What would not be easy?
If you have a limited budget, that's not easy. If you have limited staffing, that's not easy. But that's really also where you can get students involved in a variety of creative ways, I think, and give them and develop leadership positions for them and activities and clubs. How active right now are clubs and organizations on this campus?
Fairly active.
Yeah. Give me an example of your top 5 most active, or top 3 most active.
Our most active organization is the National Society of Leadership and Success. We have, over the past 4 years, inducted over 600 members into that. Like any commuter institution, we wax and wane all the time with our student orgs. Student government's fairly active. We have about 25 engaged students on this campus. That's a good club for us.
Yeah.
Our academic clubs are very active, especially in our cohorted programs. Our Phi Beta Kappa is very active. Every year it's different.
Yeah.
We do a lot of the things you're describing, engaging students creatively to get the work done.
Is there student fees that go into?
We get an allocation from tuition dollars. So it's designated by our state board that we get a certain dollar amount per dollar, but we don't have a student fee.
Okay. And of those dollars that are allocated for student programming, who makes the programming decisions?
We have a programming model.
Okay.
So we program within very specific core functional areas around student engagement.
Okay. The model that we have, we do have a student fee, which is, I think we were the first community college in Michigan to actually do that. And our student congress distributes about $500,000 a year. So to clubs and organizations, we're pretty lucky. I won't deny that. So. Yes, sir.
My name is Kelly Martin from the Academic Advising Center. And having not seen the resume, some others may have, could you give us a brief history of your higher education background and tell us a little bit more about the institution you're working at now?
Thanks, Kelly. That's a good question. I forget that not everyone has seen the resume. So I've been at Grand Rapids Community College for 19 years. Prior to that, I was at Wayne State University in Detroit and Southern Illinois University in Carbondale, Illinois. I have a bachelor's in restaurant and hotel management, which I'm quite proud of. And exactly. And I have a master's degree, a double major in educational psychology and higher education. And my PhD is in workforce education and development. I came to Grand Rapids as a counselor. I'm a licensed professional counselor in the state of Michigan. I was promoted after several years to the department head or program director position, all faculty roles still yet. And then in 2008, I was hired as the associate dean for student affairs. And in 2013, I became the Dean of Student Success and Retention. So Student Success and Retention at Grand Rapids Community College encompasses academic advising, career development, counseling services. We split our advising counseling services several years ago. We also have our occupational support program, which is Perkins funded. Support for students with disabilities is also in my division. Academic support and tutoring. We have subject tutoring labs as well as generalized tutoring labs. The library is also in my division. Until July 1, the Center for Equity and Inclusion was in my division. I'm going to forget something. Oh, the College Success Center is in my division. Probably I'm missing something. All the computer labs are in my area. I know I'm missing something. So, TRIO Student Support Services program. Kind of the same similar programs that are here at Ivy Tech that would be under this position. Thanks for the question.
And what kind of a school is Grand Rapids Community College?
Sure.
Population, is it a residential college?
No, we're a commuter institution just like Ivy Tech. We've been as high as 18,500 students. We're currently at about 14,500. That good economy just takes our students away. So yeah, we are in downtown Grand Rapids. It's not obviously not as big as Indianapolis. About 70% of our students are 68 to 70% are Caucasian. About 15% are Latino, and about 11%, give or take, are African American, and there's some other folks mixed in there as well. Fairly comprehensive community college. We are moving from the AQUIP system of accreditation to the open pathway, because AQUIP's going away. I am currently serve as a peer reviewer for the Higher Learning Commission as well, so I look at other schools. I won't look at you now. So can't. So yeah, Kelly, does that kind of answer your question about Grand Rapids? Yeah, thank you. Yes, sir.
John, Rod Brown, Dean for the School of Art Sciences and Education here. And you mentioned a lot about going through the strategic plan as far as crafting your vision. One of the parts that I didn't see here that's a big part of what we're doing currently at Ivy Tech is a focus on workforce development, workforce alignment. Under the relatively new president that we have, there has been more of a shift in that direction. Still recognizing that we have a dual mission of a community college. Could you talk about the role of, this position specifically that you're interviewing for, and the role of student success as it relates to that mission of workforce development?
Yeah, I mean, workforce development is critically important. Grand Rapids Community College was established. It has a huge workforce development program. We have lots of partnerships in the community with different employers. Do a lot of specialized training for those folks. That's critically important. So in the 14,500 students, those are just the credit students on campus. We have probably another 10 to 12,000 non-credit students that range in anywhere from a 2-day training to a 18-week training program. I provide support services for all students, right? And so those students, whether they come in for an 18-week job training program in automotive, or whether they are on our credit side in terms of doing culinary, we provide student support to all of those. I think that this position is going to be critical to supporting all students, all learners. One of my responsibilities as Associate Dean was to handle a huge chunk of our Perkins dollars. And so we use those Perkins dollars to support our students with disabilities as well as our occupational students. And so our occupational support program provides childcare, provides textbook assistance, tuition assistance for a variety of occupational students. I think sometimes our occupational students need different types of supports, and I think that we have to provide those. So just as TRIO supports our transfer-oriented population, our occupational support program supports our occupational students. I want to be very active with the academic counterparts in making sure that we know what students need, and also having diverse groups of students come to forums so that their voices can be heard. I think that's really critical. Thank you. Yes.
John, can you talk a little bit about, if you were in this position, your goals for the first 60 to 90 days?
Find the bathroom. I haven't found it yet. No. In the first 60 to 90 days, I think I really have to listen. I think I have to get to know you, and I have to listen. I think anyone who says they're going to come in and shake things up in the first 60 to 90 days, that would be foolish. I want to know, and I'm not saying that I would be inactive for 60 to 90 days, but I want to get to know you. I want to get to know what your concerns are. I want to get to know what improvements you want to see made, and how we can go about doing that. And then I think collaboratively we develop those plans for change and support. I think that we need to support our employees who are serving students, and I think that that's critically important. So first 60 to 90 days would be listening, doing a lot of walking, doing a lot of stopping in offices and talking to people and finding out what's going on, and talking to students, quite frankly. Yes?
Can you tell us a little bit about how you make decisions or prioritize when you're allocating limited resources?
Finance people often, I used this example earlier, but finance people will often say, well, everything has got to be treated equally. And I don't believe that that's true. I think that you can have a project or a program that is making a huge impact that may need more of those resources. And so it's important to collectively, not just me, but collectively look at where the money is being spent, what the impact of that program or service is, and then make decisions. Yes, you want to support everything, and you want to support all students, but you have to look at what are you getting your biggest bang for your buck with. And so I used the example of our ABO program earlier, our support program for African American men. Our chief financial officer was very, very nervous about that program. She believed that we could not use college dollars to support feeding people or to take them on a tour of another educational institution or whatever. And so I started that program with another counselor, and I convinced her that if we could take the dollars that we made in our assessment center from doing outside tests and initially apply it to the ABO program, that would be okay. So we let that slide for a couple of years. And then I found a grant program that we were able to get to support that for the next 5 years. So to answer your question about how do you make financial decisions, I want to know what the need is. And I want to know if that need is going to get us the biggest bang for our buck. So that's really critical. I want to take a look at everything that we spend money on. I do that now, but I don't do it alone. I do it with other people. Okay. That's okay.
So I'm Summer Gooding. I work in disability services, so it's good to know you have experience with that. In general terms, though, can you give us like a definition of an excellent supervisor and then a definition of an excellent direct report who might report to you?
Well, I did tell you that at Wayne State I was the associate director for disability support services, so I should have told you that. But an excellent supervisor is someone who cares, someone who listens, someone who can be objective when he or she needs to be objective, be decisive. Also, a good supervisor has his or her employees' back and interests at heart. I think that's really critically important. A good supervisor doesn't throw people under the bus. A good direct report has those same qualities, I think. I really see it as kind of the same. You're a team member. You don't want to necessarily throw other people under the bus or throw your supervisor under the bus. So I think that my background is counseling, so and restaurant hotel management. I think that as a counselor, I want the best in people. And I kind of have that expectation of others, but I know that's not always true. But that's how I like to lead and live. So, Summer, I don't know if I answered your question or not.
Thank you.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
My name is Georgina Owens, and I have like a two-part question. First, I'm piggybacking off of what Anna asked you just a moment ago about your first 60, 90 days. So after that, what do you want to achieve after, talking with everyone? But what is one of the first things that you want to achieve for the college? And then the second is also, because I am the admin for the person that receives this position, what do you expect of your immediate office as far as the VCSS?
Those are tough questions. So the first part of that question was, after the 90 days, what would I do? And the second part of her question was, what would I want from that office, essentially, correct? Did I get it? Yeah. After those 60 to 90 days, a lot of that is going to depend on what you all tell me. And so I don't come in here with preconceived notions of you need X, Y, and Z. That would be so super wrong of me to do that. I want to know what you're doing thoroughly. I know superficially what you're doing now, but I would like to know thoroughly what you're doing now. And how we can make good better and how we can make better best. And so I want to know what's really working and what's not really working, and go from there. And be bold. And I come from a philosophy, and this may kill me in the interview, but I come from the philosophy it's okay to make mistakes. And it's okay to be wrong. Now, if you continue that mistake and continue to be wrong, that's a problem. But I like people who take chances and take some risks. I think risk-taking is super important. And I support that in my staff currently. I'll tell you, in terms of my current admin, she's an amazing person. She kind of reads my mind at times. I don't expect you to read anyone's mind. But I just want someone who's honest to work with. Everyone, I hope, is honest. And even if you don't think I want to hear something, I want you to tell me, even if I don't want to hear it. Yes, sir.
Hi, Eric, I'm a student government. I wanted to ask you, how would you measure success, and how would you measure success in this department with your, also with your, I guess, students?
Tell me a little more. So,
How would you measure success?
For myself or
for yourself and for others?
Okay, gotcha. Well, I find the bathroom. No, I'm just kidding. I think success for myself is that I'm making an impact. People find value in what I bring, and I don't get in the way of progress. Right? I should be a champion of progress. I should be a champion of student success, and that's how I'm perceived. I very much I love feedback. I love 360 feedback from students and from faculty and staff, and I ask for that a lot in my current position. So I think that I would want to know from everyone that I'm doing either what they need or what they don't need, and that's okay too. You can tell me, John, that's not exactly what I need, and I will then change course. So success for myself would look like I'm doing a good job. We're working together on the same goals and going in the same direction. Doesn't mean everyone's going to. It's not going to be a love fest necessarily, but there'll be mutual respect and support. And I think that's true for the team approach as well. And I, in addition to listening to what staff have to say, I want to listen to what students have to say as well, and faculty, quite frankly, because I think that we're all in this together, and we're all supporting students. So, yes. There was a 3-question limit on the schedule.
Well, then you're not going to like me.
I like you already, so go ahead.
What was some of the constructive feedback that you received in your 360 review?
One person did say, that she wasn't ever going to come. I don't know if it was a she or not, but I think it was a she. She was never going to come to my open monthly meeting because she didn't think that it was important. And that's fair, you know. And maybe I didn't do a good enough job of explaining what the purpose of that meeting was to folks. I'm trying to recall. There's always a couple of constructive comments, which I do appreciate. Sometimes we have to hire people for part-time positions, and then we're presented with the right person at the right time, and there's really not a need to do a search for that position, right? Not full-time, but part-time positions, temporary part-time positions. And I got some constructive feedback that they wanted to see more positions posted, even part-time positions. So I thought that was fair too. So we've started doing that. Yes, sir?
What's the hardest professional hit that you have had to absorb?
That's a great question. The question was, what was the hardest professional hit that I had to absorb? I'm not sure that this is the hardest professional hit. I had to tell an employee one time that I thought that she gained more passion from being the Phi Theta Kappa advisor than she did being the director of advising. And I knew that comment hurt her. And I'm not sure I was right about that. I think that was an emotional reaction that I had given her, and that wasn't fair. And I really did some soul searching after that. We talked it out, and we had that conversation. But I think the hardest hits are always when an employee dies. That's hard. You know, I think when you've said something to someone that you regret immediately, that can be hard. But you work as a team to get through those hard hits. I think I got a phone call a year ago, and one of our folks in student life, which I don't oversee student life, but I'm still closely connected to, she passed away while on vacation. And this woman was loved by the students. And so I got called to put my counselor hat on and go downstairs and talk to people. And let people know, just be there to support people. That's hard, you know. I think I cried all the way going home that night. And I think that's losing someone is probably the hardest thing that can happen, I think. I'm being teary just thinking about it. Yes?
Sorry, Annabelle, Director of Admissions. So you mentioned earlier about your vision of assigning advisors or coaches to a certain caseload during the enrollment process. Can you speak further on your vision on the collaboration between student success and enrollment?
Absolutely. You have to work hand in hand. It's not a silo or two silos. You can't do that. You have to have a very good working relationship with your enrollment services team. I do, you know, as I said before, it's a bifurcated system at Grand Rapids as well. One dean is responsible for enrollment. I'm responsible for most of the student services. She and I are on the phone almost every day talking and planning and making sure we're supporting their events and we're not stepping on each other's feet, right? So my vision for the assigned advisor and assigned success coach, I really think that having a point of contact from admission all the way through the system to graduation is critical. And that will involve the admissions folks too. And we currently support, with our success coaches and our advisors, we support all the orientation programs. Orientation is run out of the admissions shop in Grand Rapids. And so we're there to support all that programming. When things don't work, I'll give you an example of when things don't work. Not so much with admissions, but with our enrollment center. They didn't have any evening hours this summer. And I didn't know that until a month ago. And all of my services have at least one night in the summer that they're open until 7:30. So I found that out, and I gave them a call, and so we're going to sit down, and we're going to plan out for the next year common hours for our services so that we're all on the same page. So that's an example of how I currently work with our admissions and enrollment teams. Yeah. Did you have another comment or question?
I did, yes. We have a program here, the Male Initiative, and it's kind of like, to me, dwindling. And I believe that that is one of the greatest programs that Ivy Tech has. The Male Initiative, it gives their male mentors, which is a very great thing, and especially for African American males. And I was wondering, do you see that based on at Grand Rapids what you're doing with African American males there, will you also either to revive the Male Initiative program here? I mean, is that something that you see that is foreseen?
I don't have a crystal ball, but tell me why it dwindled.
Well, I don't know as far as if there's like, I mean, I just look at it as a great program to have. It was giving these males mentors. They will be assigned mentors that will help them, throughout their process, whether it's classes, whatever their need would be. They were assigned mentors that would help them. And so we would have different programs, and we did not have those this summer. And so that's why I say dwindling or phasing out. And that's something that I am a passionate about, seeing, especially African American men.
No, it's a passion of mine too. I definitely would want to know more about it. Do you know, was there a staff person responsible for the coordination of that, or was it kind of a loose grouping of folks?
It was a grouping of folks
Okay.
that were, yes.
Okay.
I know one advisor that was on it as well. We had talked about it, and it's like, well, why they're not having these programs, And so I don't know. It's not budget. I know that,
Okay.
because there's budget money for that.
Yeah.
So I'm not for sure, but I would like to see whomever gets in this role will continue that.
Absolutely. I think those programs are super important from a sense of belongingness, inclusiveness. I think they're super important. So I would definitely be interested in having that conversation and looking to see what we can do. Was it open to all men?
Yes.
We intentionally did not do that at Grand Rapids. We limited it to African American men because our other males of color on campus didn't seem to have that level of need. So again, it was more of an equity issue for me that I wanted to be able to throw support behind that. I was also super lucky, and I said this to the earlier group, that I have a psychologist on staff who was super passionate about that topic as well. And so I shouldn't say this, but our advisors and counselors are faculty at Grand Rapids. And so I gave him release time in order to really work with that program. I think having a dedicated staff person or faculty person responsible for that is critical to the success of those programs. So I'm very interested in seeing that happen again for you all too.
Yes, and then Matt.
Yeah. Kelly.
What is your experience or thoughts regarding late registration and student success?
Well, let's see. I think it's detrimental to student success. We talked about that a little bit this morning as well. If you're bringing folks in, and I know that having people in seats is critically important. As you said, it keeps the lights on. But I don't think that those students are typically as successful as students who have been more planful in the process. I also think that you can be creative in serving people who come in a little bit later. And that's, working to have second 7-week or second 8-week classes available that they can go into so they're not just running from the point of placement testing to advising and then go to class. So I am not a big fan of late enrollment, but I am a big fan of creating conditions that are favorable for those students who do come to us late, and we do have people who say, no, I hadn't thought about it until now, I'm going to try it. I want to be able to support those students as well, but I want them to be successful. And so having late starting opportunities are critical for that population. You can't design your entire curriculum and schedule around late starting students, but you could have some options available for them. You, sir.
What makes you a pillar of strength and direction for those who report to you?
You just have all the tough questions today. This is going to sound really trite, and I don't mean for it to, but I do care for student success. I also care about supporting people who support students. I think of my current work team like family. We don't force ourselves on each other socially, but we're available to each other. And there are tough situations that we deal with, that all of you deal with every day. And having an open door to listen to people and to really care about people, I think is critical. And I'm not sure if that makes me a pillar of strength, but I think it does make me a caring, genuine human being who wants to support people who support our students.
How about getting everybody moving in the same direction?
I think he reached his limit with that one. No, well, honestly, I think that it is super important to communicate. And I don't think you can over-communicate. And I don't mean communicate by sending out an email every 30 minutes. I think that it's really important to have, again, your door is open, but you also invite people to talk to on a regular basis and listen to people. And if someone is swimming in the opposite direction, then I think you have to go to them and say, tell me why you're going in that direction, and why isn't this direction the better way to go? Maybe you're right, I don't know, and maybe the rest of us haven't seen it. But will you always have all the right people on the bus, to use another tired analogy? No. There are going to be some people that you leave at the bus stop, but hopefully you can pick them back up when the bus comes around again. So I think that that's kind of how you get people swimming in the right direction.
What excites you about this opportunity?
Everything. Working with a new team, working with a bunch of really talented, dedicated people, I think is exciting. I have that now, so I mean, I'm not that I'm lacking talent or fun people to work with, but I think doing it in a new location, doing it with a new group of students is really exciting to me. And I've been at Grand Rapids Community College for 19 wonderful years, and I think it's just time for me personally and professionally to say goodbye to that and go someplace new and have some more new fun. I don't know if I answered your question or not, but yes, sir.
You spoke to a lot of the similarities that you see between your institution and Ivy Tech. Is there any that you foresee that are differences that you might encounter that you might?
Well, I think the biggest difference is the organization of the institution. This is a system, and I'm on a campus of a system. And I come from a campus that is a campus, it's not a system. So I think having different levels of leadership and processes will be very different. It'll be challenging and kind of interesting too at the same time. So, something that interests me.
We have about 5 minutes left, so it'll be time for one, maybe 2 more questions.
Yes.
She doesn't stop.
How do you combat burnout on your teams?
I tell people to go home. I do. And I have people who are such overachievers. And I can't make you not be an overachiever, though. That's the difficult part. So I will be meeting with an employee, and I'll just say, why don't you go home? Just take the rest of the day off. It's okay. HR don't listen to that. But I do think it's important to take care of ourselves. If we can't take care of ourselves, we are not going to be able to take care of students. And when we don't take care of ourselves, we don't have good work relationships, we don't have good family relationships, and we're certainly not taking care of the students. So I combat burnout by doing a variety of things. Some of those are retreats where we do some fun activities. I talked a little bit about that earlier today. I'm going to make everyone go to an escape room. No, I'm just kidding. But I do think doing things socially together as a group can also help reduce burnout, but also just taking time away from your job. And if I've also had people who were on so many committees, I said, you know, you've listed 25 committees that you're on. Which 10 are you going to drop off of? And they don't like that, but I said, you just can't keep doing that. So I think we have to take care of each other, or we're not going to be able to take care of our students. Yes, sir.
Can you discuss your experience with student conduct and Title IX?
Sure. I currently serve in backup roles for both of those at Grand Rapids Community College. That actually does fall in the other dean's shop, but I'm very much, I've also chaired the behavioral intervention team at GRCC as well. So I'm pretty versed in conduct, Title IX, and student bit issues. I'm also a part of the employee behavioral intervention team. We have an employee team at Grand Rapids as well for faculty and staff who are facing some difficult situations. Student conduct, I have done investigations. I've not done Title IX investigations. I should be upfront honest about that. My associate dean actually is a deputy Title IX coordinator, but I am not. It's just kind of the funky way we divide things at GRCC. So I'm fairly comfortable with student conduct and student behavioral intervention work.
I think we're out of time.
Thank you all so much. I really appreciate this opportunity.